Hello, beautiful mamas. As a working mom, sometimes I can really feel scattered, unorganized, or simply just rushing from one thing to another and all over the place. Finding time for myself and finding my sanity can almost feel like an impossible dream. Can you relate? Well, this is why I have created my free Mama's Guide to Creating Balance and Harmony as my gift to you. This guide contains my top 10 tips to creating balance and harmony in your life, as well as 3 beautiful trackers to help you get onto your journey in a fun and simple way. I have found by incorporating daily self-care routines and practices in my life for as little as 5 minutes a day, I am feeling more grounded, centered, and calm. By me tapping into my best version through these practices, I am also a better mom, a better partner, and a better colleague. Well, really, just a better human being in all the ways. So, if this sounds like something that you would like to explore, click on the link in the show notes below and download your free guide today.
We were all born with the innate power of knowing and wisdom within us. The challenge for many of us is that we were taught to seek answers externally instead of searching from within. And this is the reason why so many of us find ourselves going around in circles, searching for new ways, but could never find the way. The womanly way. It's not the way. It's not my way. But it is a pathway to support all of us returning back to self, reconnect with our inner wisdom through loving ourselves, knowing ourselves, and reconnecting with ourselves.
Tell me and be honest. Tell me should I've known.
So we can start to find our own way as modern day women. Are you interested? Well, sit back, relax, and welcome to this amazing journey.
Hello. Welcome to this episode of the Womanly Way podcast. I am your host, Lala Angela Wang. I am sitting here and I can't help but giggling because I want to pull a card to anchoring the feelings, the true essence of what we're trying to convey here in this podcast today with today's topic. And as usual, these decks are magical. I'm actually using the Wild Kuan Yin Oracle by Alana Fairchild. And it's just, it's so fitting, and I'm just like, it couldn't be any other way. In fact, because it couldn't be any other way, without spoiling the, I guess, I wouldn't call it a surprise, but without spoiling the content, I'm actually going to leave this card till last. But it's really going to help me really anchoring the message that I'm trying to convey. And this whole episode is really inspired by a conversation I had with Scott last week. It really got me thinking. It really got me reflecting. And I think if it really got me thinking, imagine perhaps how many other relationships it might help by me sharing what I have learned. So the story goes, for the past few weeks, whenever Scott's not working or there's one day a week that he'll work in the city, which meant he could actually bypass my office and drop me off to work and pick me up at work. And he's been doing that for the past few weeks. But for some reason, we've just moved office, it's on a busy street. So I've got a specific drop-off point for him that meant that he doesn't have to get stuck in traffic light, roundabout, and it's on his way, so he doesn't have to do like multiple U-turns or like detours or whatever. And it's always at the same spot. I always get him to set the same destination, always at the same spot, because I can't remember the street name. Literally, I just said to him, set it at a train station, and then you essentially drive past the train station, and it's the second set of traffic light past the train station. Easy to remember, super easy to remember. For 3 weeks, he cannot remember it. So week before last, I said, look, it's not that hard. Can you just remember? And so next week, hopefully I won't have to tell you again. Again, this is probably my own problem. I hate repeating myself. And if I have to repeat 3 times, it's okay. But the 4th time and the 5th time, I will explode, literally. And this is a part of me that I'm still working on. But there's no but, actually. I'm still working on it, right? And last week, here it comes. Last week, I'm like, you remember? Have you checked? You remember how to drop me off? Yeah. And once again, we got to the train station. The first traffic light, he's like, oh, do I turn here? But this is when I pretty much exploded. You can see steam coming out of my ears. I said no. Yeah. Anyway, I told him where to go again. And as we were driving and he's about to stop, I asked him this question and I said, can you just check in with yourself, with your brain? Why is this part of it so hard to remember? Why is this so hard to remember? He's like, it's got nothing to do with my brain. I'm like, yes, it has. Because you can remember a whole lot of things quite easily. Why is this particular thing about where to drop me off so hard to remember? He's like, oh, I just need to look at the map. I'm like, yeah, that's the solution. But what makes it so hard to remember? Because if you know why it makes it so hard to remember, you know how to remediate it. Right? And this is my way of saying we need to get to the root cause of it, because if we can get to the root cause of it, it's actually a learning opportunity. And for me, it's never about repeat offense. I'm more interested in why the brain functions that way. As you guys all know, I love anything about the brain, how brain functions, how the brain works. And I think if we can all understand how our brain works, you can essentially hack your brain, right? And that was what I was trying to get to. And I said to him, you don't have to tell me right now, but I think it would be useful to figure it out. And plus, it's really annoying that I have to tell you every single time where to drop me off. So that night, I asked him, I said, have you thought about the question I asked you today? And he said, yes, actually I have. And I said, okay, so why is it so hard for you to remember where to drop me off? He said, well, because you're always there and you will always tell me where to go. I'm like, so you've got a lazy brain. And it's not criticism. It's literally, and lazy brain isn't meaning it's a bad brain. Lazy brain is actually a very smart brain. If you have a lazy brain, you actually have a very smart brain. Because this is how our brain functions. It has so much information coming. There's so much information coming at us every single day, right? And the brain is essentially designed to take the route of least resistance. So it's going to take the shortest path. And a clever brain would take literally the shortest path, whatever is the easiest. And for Scott's brain, the easiest way is to not to think. Just to rely on Lala to rely on Lala to tell him where to go. That's so easy because there's no input required, right? There's no process required. There's no brain power required. It will just get resolved. And I think a lot of capable women will relate to this. You know, we're out there all day, making decisions, doing things, doing deals. And really, a lot of times when we come home, the last thing we want is to think, to use our brain, to make more decisions, right? And quite often we said, you know, when we come home, we just want to be tapping into our feminine. We love our masculine to make the decisions for us. But quite often, our control freak self takes over. And the rest is history. What do I mean by that? Quite often, even though we desire for our other half or desire for our partner, our husband, our significant others to make those decisions and be the king of the castle, often we still prefer things done our way. So I actually did a lot of reflecting on this conversation. And you know what? This is a conclusion that I have reached. At least it applies to my relationship anyway. When a man has become complacent or become lazy, or essentially, I'm going to say when a man has become lazy in a relationship, as the other person in the relationship, I think we also need to take responsibility. Right? It is our own insecurity that has created the control freak self. What do I mean by that? The reason that we want to control everything is because we feel by staying in control, it makes us feel safe and secure. Because at least we know what the outcome is, right? But when we want to control the outcomes of every single thing in our lives, guess what? Often everything is looked after, taken care of by us. And so the man of our life comes home. He goes, "Oh, can I cook you a steak?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." He cooked me a steak and then was like, "Well, actually, I prefer medium rare. This is too well done. That's not good enough. This is not good enough. That's not good enough. You're not doing this my way. You're not doing this right. You have to do it this way. It's my way or the highway." Imagine living a life like that. In the end, the male brain is quite simple. It's really quite simple. What's the easiest way? And what is the easiest way to give me peace? Well, follow whatever the female says in the household. Why? Because then she'll stop nagging. And then we won't be wrong. It's a very tough conversation, isn't it? And really quite truthfully, I take responsibility. And, ever since that conversation, I started to step back. And I even said to Scott, look, I'm stepping back. I'm not going to tell you what to do anymore as much as I can, because I don't want to make this laziness a habit. The same thing that as a mom, a boy mom, I want to make sure that my son learns all the critical life skills. So then when they go out there, I don't have to rely on another female. And just purely by observation, I looked at the way that my brother was taught and the way that Scott was taught. I realized how much of a gift my mum has given us by being that mom that always asks us to do everything. As hard as it is for her, because we are essentially first generation migrants, my sister, my brother and I, we often have to do a lot of things around the house. My mom's English isn't that great, so a lot of times she will ask us to do things. But that has created our ability to be more independent and has given us a lot of life skills. Now, in Scott's family, because I asked him during this conversation, I said, did your mom used to do everything for you guys when you were little? He's like, yeah. And that's the difference, right? I love Scott's mom to bits, and she's also very traditional. And she's still of the belief it's quicker for her to do it than to ask for help. Part of the reason that Scott can't cook is because his mom prefers to own the kitchen. Whereas my mom, because she couldn't cook when she was younger, she started teaching us how to cook because she wanted us to be able to survive and cook for ourselves. So I guess this discussion comes in two folds, right? Number one, if you're living with a partner in life and you're feeling that, he's not, I guess, contributing as much as you want, or you feel like you wanted to encourage him to, I guess, take more responsibility or stepping up, the best way is to step back. The best way really is to essentially give them the power to be in control, which also means sometimes a bit scary for inner control freaks, right? And the same thing, if you are a mom, especially a boy mom, and you want to support your sons to be more independent and to essentially man up earlier, it would be the same thing, to give them the power. I look at George every time when he feels empowered, every time he has achieved something, he does a little fist pump thing. And he'll go, I did it. And that's the thing about empowerment. It creates this energy. It creates this memory. It creates this power within them that's beyond your imagination, that is beyond any words that you could say. It's as simple as that. I wish I could show you guys what George does whenever he achieves something that he's very proud of. It's just this pure joy, excitement, so proud of himself. And that's the energy that is so infectious, but also I will never forget. And whatever now I think about, I want to empower both of my boys. I said both of my boys, Scott and George. I think of the energy. That's the energy that I want to create with them then. I want them to be able to express their energy from within and outwardly. And the more that you allow boys and men to step into their energy, the more they are able to step up and step into leadership roles at home. So now, let me read the card that I pulled from the Wild Kuan Yin Oracle. And you'll know why I was giggling. So it's card number 10, called Safe to Fall. Just like the air that fills your lungs, my grace is invisible and yet brings you life. Fear of falling may prevent you from truly surrendering into my care. Yet if you were to realize that it is safe to fall, then my grace will catch you as you step beyond the edge of what you have known. So much will be possible for you. I urge you to believe in what is calling you to take a leap of faith. I tell you now, my wild, sweet beloved, the call is from me, urging you to open up to a bigger world. Trust me, and relinquish logic and control. I will not fail you. And it goes on to say, sometimes we try to hold on, even when it would be better to let go. Sometimes what we hold on to is actually the very thing holding us back. If we let our fears become stronger than our trust, we will underestimate ourselves and the divine. And also we will underestimate the power of people around us, right? See? How accurate are these cards? The other thing was, I've actually last week injured, I was trying to pull George out of the car because he wouldn't get out of the car to get into daycare. And by doing so, I actually pulled a muscle on my right hand side on my lower back. And I looked it up when I was having a chat with one of my acquaintances as part of my network. And she's like, you do know right hand side is masculine. I'm like, yes. And lower back is actually related to not feeling supported. And this was shortly after I had that discussion with Scott. And the truth is, quite often when we don't feel supported, it's not that there's no support around us. It's really just that we're so stubborn and wanting to be in control. We're not opening ourselves to receive support. And this is such a masculine thing, right? And, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is I have been learning to embody my feminine for a long time. And sometimes I still slip, you know, and I think the path of growth and evolution is like a continuum throughout this lifetime. So sometimes we do need to give ourselves a little bit of grace. You know, we're all human, we all make mistakes. It's not about beating ourselves up. And really this conversation is not about who's right or who's wrong, but to look at things from a different perspective and go, oh, yes, it's scary because they might F it up, But also, if we look at the long-term big picture, it's going to give us so many more benefits. Number one, you'll feel more supported. Number two, you'll feel more freedom, because you no longer have to hold everything so tightly. And number three, it will improve your relationship with your male counterpart, with your sons, with your brothers, with, any male in your life. And you end up really giving them the freedom and the courage and the support to step up as future leaders. So, in my opinion, this letting go business, this thing about relinquishing control in your day-to-day, it's a win-win. Right? Again, it's not criticizing who's right or who's wrong. But if you were like me, thinking, oh my God, my partner is so lazy and, I wish he could step up. Perhaps this is what you needed. Perhaps this is your answer, just like how it's my answer. And another clue, I'm going to leave this podcast with this final story. Another clue that I have about why I created a man with a lazy brain, because I know that when we first met, right, Scott used to tidy up my apartment for me. We weren't even living together. He used to tidy up my apartment for me. So I know that there's a part of him that is actually not that lazy. There's a part of him that is a great partner, that wanted to help, that wanted to create this amazing space and home for me. But as time goes on, we all get lazy. But at the same time, I also realize that I have a part to play in this. Right? So if you ever wonder why your partner has changed, why they have become lazier, or why they're doing less, or why they're less engaging, my challenge to you is, number one, to be brave enough to ask those tough questions. Perhaps not as blunt as the way that I've asked, because I kind of asked that question out of frustration. But sit down and go, hey, honey, I'm just curious. I would really love some support around the home. And, an example of giving me more support would be X, Y, and Z. And I'm just wondering, why is it that I always have to ask you to do something? Is there any way that we work together so that I don't have to ask? Because every time I ask, I feel like a nag. And I feel like I'm nagging. So after a while, I just stop nagging and do it myself. To work it out that way. But also at the same time, do some inner reflection and say, hey, do I have a part to play in this? Am I being too controlling? And is that why I have a life partner that decided to essentially start taking shortcuts and just let me lead because it's easier? It's less confrontational and it's easier. It's easier on everybody's lives, in their opinion. For me, it really has made my life a lot easier. It allows me to lean back even more. And I'm not as angry anymore. I don't get as frustrated anymore. And really, it's just, I've got a decision now. I've got a choice now, right? Do I do it myself? Do I nag about it? Do I tell him what to do? Or do I simply lean back and go, hey, he can make the decision. It's up to him. He's a grown man, and I trust that he will make the right decision. If he doesn't, we can talk about it and we'll work it out. But we don't have to do everything. And we don't have to tell him exactly what to do every single step of the way. Because, quite frankly, these men are not our kids. I know we call them man-child sometimes, but they're not our kids. Right? And if we want to stop creating more men like that, we have to do the same thing to our kids. Give them more independence, give them more control, allow them to lead themselves and allow them to make the mistakes. On that note, this is the end of my rant for the day. And I think that's where we'll conclude this episode of the Womanly Way podcast. Thank you once again for listening. If there's any feedback, if you would like me to riff on any topics or anything, feel free to write in. My email is mywomanlyway@gmail.com, or you can contact me through any of the social media means that's listed in the show note. Love you all so much, and I will catch up with you next time. Bye.